welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Well, folks, I am back again, and this time I'm going solo on this one, and I'm going to return to the superhero genre. And I know it's been a while since I talk a lot about superhero movies, but I thought for this episode I go back to the genre and basically talk about a superhero movie that came out last year, because we have a few superhero movies that came out last year, and the one I'm going to look at is from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you read that title correctly, yes, I'm going to talk about the latest Fantastic Four movie, The Fantastic Four First Steps, or simply titled Fantastic Four The First Steps. The Fantastic Four First Steps is a 2025 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics superhero team, The Fantastic Four, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Picture. It is the 37th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the second reboot of the Fantastic Four film series, following the critical and commercial flop, which is the Fan Four Stick movie that came out in 2015. Now, Fantastic Four The First Steps, which came out in 2025, was directed by Matt Shackman from a screenplay by Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, and the team of Jeff Kaplan and Ian Springer. It features an ensemble cast which includes Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ibn Moss Bachrach, and Joseph Quinn playing the titular team, alongside with Julia Gardner, Sarah Niles, Mark Gatiss, Natasha Lyonne, Paul Walter Hauser, and Ralph Ineson. The film is set in the 1960s in a retro futuristic world which the Fantastic Four must protect from the planet-devouring cosmic being Galactus. And guys, I'm going to be completely honest, we've been waiting for a good Fantastic Four movie, and I mean good. I am not talking about a Fantastic Four movie. I'm just simply talking about a good Fantastic Four movie. To be honest, though, the Fantastic Four movies before we got the 2025 film, they weren't that great. Like, we have we theoretically now, before 2025's Fantastic Four, we had 3 or 4 Fantastic Four movies. Now I say 3 or 4 because one of the Fantastic Four movies didn't get a theatrical release, but the other 3 did. And I'm going to talk about that too. Now, before I dive into more of the Fantastic Four, I just want to say to anybody who is new to to anybody who is listening and is new to the podcast show, welcome to Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. If you are listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more content. And if you are listening to this on Spotify and Podbean, don't forget to hit the follow button as well. Okay, and that's that. All right, let's get back to the Fantastic Four. So, anyway, yes, I mentioned that there were 3 or 4 Fantastic Four movies before we got the one that came out last year. Now, this first one was actually Marvel's first attempt, and this was right around the time when the Marvel movies were pretty new. So this one was actually unreleased, and it's basically the 1994 version of Fantastic Four. That movie alone was never released. Now, the reason behind this movie never got a release date in theaters is, I guess you could say, the way how it was made. Like, if you look up the 1994 Fantastic Four movie online, you could definitely tell, like, the way how it was made and the costumes, they are so cheesy looking. Like, it is completely laughable. Like, It was not official. It was never released in theaters. However, there were pirated copies circulated since 1994, as well as various clips being available online. However, it was released illegally on VHS in fall of 1994 and released on DVD legally in Australia on June 29th of 2005. And of course, the Rotten Tomatoes score on the 1994 Fantastic Four movie had a 27% score. And many critics pointed out how cheesy it looks. Plus, Neil Calloway of Flickering Myth said, and I quote, "The production values are of a 1990s daytime soap, which is, I guess you could say, daytime soap opera with some rather clunky dialogue." And yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. Like, if you look up the 1994 Fantastic Four movie online, you can definitely tell how cheesy it looked. Like, the way how it was made was not that great. But yeah, Fantastic Four 1994, it never got a release date. But of course, moving forward, later down the line, we got the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies because Tim Story, who is a film director, he directed the Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, which came out in 2005 and 2007. Now, both of those movies were not great, but they were actually a lot of fun. I remember both of these movies with Chris Evans playing the Human Torch. Like, long before Chris Evans played Captain America, Chris Evans played the Human Torch in both Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. But of course, there was going to be a third Fantastic Four movie from Tim's story, but that never got off the ground due to the overall reception of the sequel that came out. So then there was a reboot that came out in 2015 titled Fantastic Four 2015, or simply titled Fan Four Stick. And that movie sucked hard. Like, no joke. Fantastic Four 2015 was obviously the worst Fantastic Four movie. And it says enough when it makes the previous movies look good, right? Like, Fan Four Stick, or like Fan Four Stick from 2015 was absolutely horrible. The movie's title is basically a punchline in it of itself. Like, Fan Fours suck. That movie, the 2015 Fantastic Four movie, is basically Fan Fours suck. That movie was awful. But 10 years later, we finally got a reboot of Fantastic Four. Now, the 2025 Fantastic Four movie, that movie was good, but it wasn't fantastic either. And guys, this is going to be a hot take. The closest we're going to get to a fantastic Fantastic Four movie is Disney Pixar's The Incredibles. It says enough when Disney and Pixar are able to make a better Fantastic Four movie than what 20th Century Fox did with the Fantastic Four movie. Like, it says enough. It says enough, really. Like The Incredibles from 2004 is widely considered to be the best Fantastic Four movie ever made, even though it is not an official Marvel production. And besides, it is favored for capturing the dysfunctional family dynamic, team based power sets, and 1960s spy fi aesthetic better than official Fantastic Four adaptations. And I'm basically referring to the Fantastic Four films that came out, like the ones from 2005, 2007, and 2015. However, I do consider 2005 and 2007 to be fun movies, right? Like 2005 and 2007 Fantastic Four movies, they're, let's just say, they're so bad they're good. And I'll admit those films were not great, but The 2005 2007 Fantastic Four, the 2005 2007 Fantastic Four movies with Chris Evans as the Human Torch was a lot of fun. Now 2025's Fantastic Four movie is good, but not as great as The Incredibles. But it taking The Incredibles out of the equation, Fantastic Four: The First Steps is obviously the best Fantastic Four movie in a Marvel production, while taking The Incredibles out of the equation. So technically, in a Marvel production, Fantastic Four: The First Steps is the best Fantastic Four movie by far. But adding The Incredibles in, it's The Incredibles. I'll say it again. For Marvel production, Fantastic Four: The First Steps is the best Fantastic Four movie. However, as Fantastic Four movies as a whole, it's The Incredibles. Okay, enough said. So anyway, let's get back to the movie, shall we? So 20th Century Fox began work on a new Fantastic Four movie following the failure of Fan Force Stick in 2015, more like Fan Force Suck. So after the studio was acquired by Disney in March of 2019, control of the franchise was transferred to Marvel Studios, and a new film was announced that July. John Watts was set to direct in December of 2020, but stepped down in April of 2022. And I think this was prior to when John Watts was directing Spider-Man: No Way Home, by the way. And then, of course, Matt Shakman replaced John Watts that September when Kaplan and Springer were working on the script. Casting began by early 2023, and this is also around the time of the SAG-AFTRA strikes. If you guys remember the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strikes, right? So Friedman joined in March to rewrite the script, and the film is a lot different from the previous Fantastic Four movies by avoiding the team's origin story, which, to be fair, that is a risky move, but I think what this film had was pretty good. Pearson joined to polish the script by mid-February of 2024 when the main cast and the title The Fantastic Four were announced. The subtitle was added in July when filming began. And filming took place until November of 2024 at Pinewood Studios in England, and on location in England and Spain. The Fantastic Four: First Steps premiered at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles on July 21st, 2025, and was released in the United States on July 25th as the first film in Phase 6 of the MCU. It received generally positive reviews from critics and grossed $521.9 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing Fantastic Four film with a sequel in development. However, the film didn't do that well at the box office. Now, of course, that may sound like it did pretty well. Unfortunately, it didn't. Because due to a steep 66 to 67% second weekend decline, failing to maintain its initial, albeit strong, opening momentum. Despite a decent start, the film struggled to sustain audience interest compared to the other 2025 releases. So, yeah. So, apparently, the film's second weekend had a huge drop. And while it made over $500 million, it still wasn't enough to become a box office hit. And on top of that, the film's budget for the gross budget is $229.6 million, while the net budget was $181 million. Now, like I said, that would have been like I said, 521.9 million. That may sound like a box office hit, but not really due to the budget that Marvel had for this movie. And it's a real shame too, because I thought this movie was pretty good. With that being said, I thought we should break down this movie, shall we? Now, with that being said, before I dive into the breakdown of this movie, I thought I'd give him my brief history. Now, I kind of already did by explaining the other Fantastic Four movies, but I watched both Fantastic Four movies from 2005 and 2007. I thought they were a lot of fun. I enjoyed Chris Evans as the Human Torch, but those movies were not that great, but they were a lot of fun. Fantastic Four 2015 or Fan Four Stick, whatever you want to call it, that movie did not do well. And to add insult to injury, though, I saw Fantastic Four 2015 when it opened, right? Like, I was super excited for that movie, but after watching that after watching that movie, I was disappointed, completely disappointed by the overall execution of that movie. Like, that movie was also boring too. How can 20th Century Fox make a boring Fantastic Four movie that came out in 2015? But that would be a different episode for another time. Because I want to talk about the 2025 film. So, with that being said, let's get to the breakdown of Fantastic Four: The First Steps. So anyway, the film opens up on Earth 828. Sue Storm informs about her pregnancy to Reed Richards. Now, of course, Sue Storm and Reed Richards are being played by Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal, and it was announced that Sue Storm is going to have a baby. To which, in the comics, the child's name is Franklin. This movie takes place in the 60s, right? The future of the 1960s. So in 1964, the world celebrates the fourth year anniversary of astronauts Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm becoming the superhero team known as the Fantastic Four after the astronauts gained superhuman abilities from exposure to cosmic rays during a space mission. The team had become celebrities and fought supervillains, while Reed's inventions had progressed technology, and Sue's diplomacy via the Future Foundation has led to Sue's basically like, a diplomatic speaker for the Future Foundation, going to, for peace, right? For peace in the world, right? Or world peace, so to say. And when Reed and Sue reveal that they are expecting a child, the team in the world prepares for the child's arrival and questions whether the child will also have superpowers. That kind of reminds me of Jack from The Incredibles, right? So anyway, all of Reed's tests doesn't show any anomaly, and the unborn child is normal. After several months, the Silver Surfer arrives at Earth and declares that Earth has been marked for destruction by Galactus. Reed studies similar energy signatures and verifies the disappearance of other planets. The team decides to return to space to stop Galactus from coming to Earth. The team tracks the energy signature, uses faster than light travel, and arrives at a planet which is being destroyed by Galactus' ship. Silver Surfer takes the team to meet Galactus, while Herbie scans Galactus' ship and collects samples. Galactus reveals to the team about his about his hunger, right? Because Galactus, he's basically a he eats planets, right? He destroys and eats planets. So he's basically a planet eater, right? Destroyer of planets, so to say, right? It's like Unicron from Transformers, right? Who likes to feed on planets, right? That's kind of like what the Galactus is in the Fantastic Four comics, right? Or should I say feast on planets, right? So anyway, Galactus senses that Reed and Sue's unborn child has an immense cosmic power and offers to spare Earth in exchange for the child. The team refuses the offer, but Galactus induces Sue to go into labor. The team escapes Galactus' ship, but Silver Surfer pursues after the team. Using the gravity from a black hole, the team escapes from the Silver Surfer and propels their ship back to Earth. Sue gives birth to Franklin on the way to Earth. And after a month, the team arrives at Earth and Reed reveals about the negotiation with Galactus. Galactus needs Franklin to end his eternal hunger. Reed continues to find a plan to defeat Galactus, and Johnny begins to decipher Silver Surfer's native language. The people protest against the Fantastic Four and calling for Franklin to be sacrificed to Galactus. And I think somewhere down the line, and I think somewhere down the line, there was actually a protest going on about a Galactus cult as well. You know how back in the day, like in the 1950s, how UFO sightings were a pretty popular thing, and there's like some cult like group, you know, calling for like the UFOs to come on down, right? That sort of thing, you know. I believe that was something that happened in this movie. Like there's some sort of Galactus cult. The people in this movie were protesting against the Fantastic Four and calling for Franklin to be sacrificed to Galactus. And it was mentioned that there's some sort of Galactus cult. Like this group is waiting for Galactus to come and to take Franklin, right? That is messed up in many ways. Like, why would the Fantastic Four give up their son to Galactus? That is just messed up. I thought Galactus was basically, you know, a destroyer of planets, you know, eating on planets, right? You know, if he eats planets, he technically eats everybody on the planet, right? Just saying, not just one person, right? Obviously, Galactus eating planets. Yeah, that's a thing in the comics. So anyway, as Galactus's ship crossed Jupiter, the protest escalates. Sue takes Franklin to meet with protesters and regains the public's trust by convincing the protesters that the team will defeat Galactus and save humanity without sacrificing Franklin. Reed plans to teleport Earth to another solar system far away from Galactus's reach, and all the nations worldwide begin to build large teleportation bridges across Earth and conserve the energy needed for the teleportation. Before that happened, before the teleportation bridge is fully activated, the Silver Surfer destroys most of the teleportation bridges. Johnny stops the Silver Surfer from destroying the last teleportation bridge in Times Square. Johnny reveals about various transmissions, including Shalabal, the real name of the Silver Surfer, and how she became Galactus's herald to spare her world, Zenla. After hearing transmissions from planets which Galactus destroyed, the Silver Surfer leaves Earth. The team plans to use Franklin as bait to lure Galactus to the last teleportation bridge and teleport Galactus to the edge of the universe. Sue convinces Harvey Elder to evacuate New York City citizens to underground city Subterranea. Galactus arrives at Earth, avoids the team's trap, defeats the team, and captures Franklin. Sue uses all of her power to push Galactus towards the teleportation bridge while Reed rescues Franklin. The Silver Surfer pushes Galactus into the portal opened through the teleportation bridge. And to bring this up too, Johnny was going to sacrifice himself to save the members of the Fantastic Four from Galactus. Like he even tells the member, he even tells I believe it was Reed and Ben. It was Reed and Ben. He tells him, tell Franklin Uncle Johnny loves him, right? Like Johnny was going to sacrifice himself to defeat Galactus, but the Silver Surfer last minute pushes Johnny out of the way, and she pushes Galactus into the portal open through the teleportation bridge, and that's basically it. He's basically inside the portal, right? I don't think Galactus is dead, but I'm pretty sure he's going to come back for future projects. So, anyway, Sue dies from excess usage of power, but Franklin revives Sue. And then, of course, they're now famous again, right? The Fantastic Four are basically, you know, popular again, right? Since they saved the city from Galactus. And then, of course, they obviously go on another mission, and that's basically it, right? And that's basically it. Now, we do get two post-credit scenes. Now, the first one I'm going to bring up is basically, you know, Fantastic Four in a TV show, right? Cartoon TV show, because there was a Fantastic Four TV show that came out Um, I forget when it came out. I know there was a '90s Fantastic Four show. I know there was a Fantastic Four show that came out sometime in the '90s, but I think there was a '60s one too. But it was basically Herbie watching a '60s Fantastic Four show, right? And he just turns off the TV after that. But the other post credit scene I want to bring up is when Sue sees her son Franklin interacting with a man in a green cloak holding a metal mask. And yes, I am referring to Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom's going to be the main villain in Avengers Doomsday, and Doctor Doom is played by Robert Downey Jr. Also, to mention this too, and believe it or not, there is one mention of Doctor Doom in this movie, not by name, but by his country of Latveria. In the beginning of the movie, when Sue Storm is having her world peace conference with all the other countries, there is an empty chair with the country plaque of Latveria placed on the table, right? And that is basically a reference to the country of Latveria, to which Victor Von Doom is from, right? And that's basically referencing Doctor Doom. But yes, we see Doctor Doom at the end of Fantastic Four: The First Steps in a post-credit scene. So hinting that yes, we are going to see Doctor Doom in another movie, which is basically Avengers Doomsday. That's pretty much the breakdown of this movie. So anyway, just to give you my overall thoughts, I enjoyed this movie. I thought the movie overall was a lot of fun. There is a sense of fun and charm to this movie, right? Especially the 1960s setting. Like, my goodness, the 60s setting, I thought it was good. And it really fits the overall vibe for the Fantastic Four. And and to keep in mind, the Fantastic Four came out in the 1960s. Even Doctor Strange poked fun of Reed Richards from the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie, where Doctor Strange, who sees Reed Richards, and Reed Richards is one of the members of the Illuminati in the world of Marvel, where Doctor Strange sees Reed Richards as a member of the Illuminati and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He sees Reed Richards, and he's like, "Didn't you guys charter in the '60s or something?" Like, yeah, because the Fantastic Four comic came out in the '60s, right? In fact, the team debuted in the Fantastic Four #1 cover dated back in November of 1961. So they basically got their start in the '60s. So the '60s aspect is pretty good. Like the flying car that they actually have. Oh man, that is great. I like that car. And the flying car that the Fantastic Four have, like that car is awesome. I do like the train bridge that they actually have. There is a hint of that train bridge that they have. Like it's got that '60s setting that has that '60s aspect to it. Like that is pretty good. I mean, even the building that they're at. I mean, it's a futuristic building, but it's still good. Even the movie has like a '60s show, right? There are a couple scenes where we get this 60s show, right? I think it was called the Ted Gilbert show. I think that's the name of the show in this movie. Yeah, Ted Gilbert, the host of a popular talk show, the host of a popular talk show called the Ted Gilbert Show, to which Ted Gilbert is being played by Mark Gatiss. And the Ted Gilbert Show, it's got that '60s charm to it, to which I have to appreciate too. Even the ABC News opening has that '60s feel to it as well, especially when they go up into space as well. Like I enjoy that. Oh man, like that is awesome. I enjoy the 1960s aspect of that movie. But Just to move forward with some of the positives, I thought the casting was pretty solid. Now, I was a little split on Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, but mostly Pedro Pascal because, and I'm going to be completely honest, Pedro Pascal has been popping up here and there throughout 2024 and 2025. Like everybody's going to remember Pedro Pascal for playing the Mandalorian. In fact, there is going to be a Mandalorian movie coming out sometime this year titled The Mandalorian Grogu. But going back to what I said, Pedro Pascal was popping up here and there, right? Like he was in a multitude of movies. Some of the movies that he was in caught me by surprise, like Gladiator 2, The Wild Robot. Yeah, The Wild Robot caught me by surprise because he voiced a fox in the Wild Robot movie, right? Like he played a fox named Fink, right? And then of course he was announced as Reed Richards. Everybody was pretty split on that whole on his casting on that too. But after this movie, I thought Pedro Pascal was a pretty solid Reed Richards. Sure, I would prefer John Krasinski's take of Reed Richards if he was casted in this movie, but I thought Pedro Pascal was okay. I mean, he wasn't a great Reed Richards, but he was a pretty solid Reed Richards too. Now, going to Vanessa Kirby, now this is going to be a hot take. I thought Vanessa Kirby looked a little old, to be quite honest. But after further investigation, I realized that Vanessa Kirby Vanessa Kirby is basically in her late 30s. Like as of this year, she's basically 37, 38 years old. So she's basically hitting the 40-year-old mark pretty soon. And for that young, and she's still young. Like wow, she's still young. But even in this movie, I saw her in this movie. She looked a little old. Like I thought she was in her 40s when that movie came out, but no, she's basically in her late 30s. Give her credit where credit is due. She still holds up. But but yeah, I was kind of a little. But yeah, I didn't think. But yeah, I when I saw Vanessa Kirby in that movie, I thought she looked like she's in her 40s. But even when the movie came out, she's still in her late 30s. So that's pretty impressive for Vanessa Kirby, to be quite honest, though. But between her and Pedro Pascal, I thought they were both fine. They were both fine. They were both fine overall. I especially like how Sue Storm goes after Galactus. Like once Galactus took Franklin, she goes into full on Mama Bear, right? You know how Mama Bear always looks after her cubs, right? You know how Mama Bear has to be there to protect the cubs. That's basically Sue Storm. She goes full on Mama Bear to and used all of her powers to push Galactus into the portal, right? She even said, let go of my son," right? She even tells Galactus to let go of her son, right? Like yeah, you better let go of her son. That's not Yeah, you better let go of her son. You're not gonna take her son away, Mr. Galactus. Yeah. Hey, yeah, I agree with Sue Storm on that. Sue Storm going full on Mama Bear. I even liked how Reed Richards rescued Franklin, right? Like Reed Richards, like I'll be honest, Reed Richards wasn't really the smartest man in this movie because Reed Richards in the comics, he's supposed to be the smartest man, right? I feel like the writers kind of made him to be I feel like they made him 50-50, not the smartest man and the smartest man. Like he was at least smart enough to rescue Franklin, right? So like once Galactus like entered the portal, Reed uses his flexible powers and was able to rescue Franklin. Like he jumps into Galactus's hand, grabs Franklin, and lands for safety. Right? Like he was able to rescue Franklin. So yeah, that's pretty. That's awesome. And then of course, so yeah, that's awesome. But I do like how there are scenes where he's still trying to like figure out how to like defeat Galactus, right? Like he's even struggling too, right? There are times where he struggles to like how to like, move away from Galactus, right? But speaking of Galactus, Galactus in this movie is really good. Like Galactus in this movie, like I was impressed with how Galactus came to life. Now, granted, he is CGI, which is absolutely true, but couple things about Galactus. If you watch some behind the scenes clips, the actor Ralph Ensign, he actually wore he wore an actual costume for Galactus. And of course, and of course, they actually use his real voice to play Galactus, right? But of course, it's CGI. But it's not just CGI. He's basically really wearing the real costume. So it's technically a mix of the real deal and CGI. And I thought the filmmakers did a real good job bringing Galactus to life. Like we get introduced, like when we are first introduced to Galactus, I'm not gonna lie, I was intimidated by this guy. Like we have never seen a comic accurate Galactus on any film screen. Aside from TV or video games, we have never seen a live action Galactus in film up until now. The first attempt of Galactus in film was in Fantastic Four: The Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Galactus in that movie was basically a space cloud. Yeah, an actual space cloud, right? He was an actual space cloud in the 2007 Fantastic Four movie. Like, yeah, 20th Century Fox. Like, let's look at the budget for that. 20th Century Fox had a budget of 120 to 130 million dollars for Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, where it introduced Galactus. And what did they get out of that? A cloud version of Galactus. Now, cut to 2025 Fantastic Four movie, which has a bigger budget. We get to see a full on take of Galactus, right? And that's because the film had a bigger budget, but I'll be honest, it was well worth seeing Galactus on screen. You can even feel his presence after the Fantastic Four had their first confrontation with him. That's when they were trying to figure out how do we get away from how do they get away from Galactus, right? I especially love the ending fight where all the members of the Fantastic Four are fighting him and each member goes after him. Like Johnny Storm does his usual fire powers on Galactus. Even Ben was able to clobber his face. I also love how Reed was he not only rescued Franklin, but he was able to stab Galactus in the back before he was stretched out by Galactus. And then, of course, Sue Storm using her powers to push Galactus in the portal. I do like how all the members of the Fantastic Four were basically, joining in on the fight. But of course, Galactus was basically a force to be reckoned with. I especially love how he uses his vision his vision to search Franklin, and he says this line to the Fantastic Four: clever little bugs. Now the reason why he said that, because when he was about to fall into the Fantastic Four's trap, thinking that, oh yeah, that's Franklin inside the baby cradle. No, he's inside the building with Herbie, right? He's inside the building with Herbie. And he's just basically like, are you guys that smart? You do realize I can still use my vision to scan the whole place, right? Like, yeah. The Fantastic Four didn't think to take out Galactus's scanning vision, right? But anyway, Galactus wasn't in the movie for that long, but of course he's probably gonna come back for future movies. He's not dead. He's basically teleported somewhere else. So technically he's not dead, but he's going to appear. I'm pretty sure he's going to appear in future films. But on top of that, I do like how his presence is felt, especially from the help of the Silver Surfer. Anyway, moving forward, the musical score by Michael Giacchino was pretty good. Like, is there anything to say about Michael Giacchino? Like, Michael Giacchino, like, he's up there with Hans Zimmer when it comes to making superhero music, right? Like, Hans Zimmer has composed a lot of scores for superhero movies, like the Dark Knight trilogy, and of course, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Man of Steel. He probably and then of course the X-Men Dark Phoenix movie as well. But Michael Giacchino, he has composed a number of musical scores for superhero movies. He has composed The Incredibles 1 and 2. He composed Sky High. He also composed all three Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. He also composed Thor Love and Thunder, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing a couple, but he also composed and directed Werewolf by Night, which is a Marvel TV special, and of course, Fantastic Four: The First Steps. Like, I don't know what to say. Michael Giacchino, he really composed a really good musical score for this movie. I especially love the chorus singing the Fantastic Four title, right? Anytime you listen to the Fantastic Four theme in this movie, you hear the Fantastic Four, you hear the chorus singing Fantastic Four. It is amazing. Michael Giacchino, he really made a really good Fantastic Four composition score for this movie. But anyway, let's move forward. I do like how the thing is a little more comic book accurate, despite Ben Grimm, the thing being CGI throughout the movie. I still appreciate the visuals and and the look of the thing. Like, the rocky texture is still there, although I still prefer the 2005 2007 Ben Grimm thing, because the thing's costume in the 2005 2007 film, it was an actual costume. It was a practical costume. It's still, I mean, sure, yeah, it definitely had a more of a let's just say Saturday morning feel to it, but I still appreciated it. The CGI on the thing in Fantastic Four First Steps is pretty good. I enjoy it. Although there were a couple times where I'm reminded that, yeah, it's CGI. There, especially when it comes to Ben having a conversation with this one woman being played by Natasha Lyonne. Like, like, he's being filmed in a green screen, right? He's being filmed in an obvious green screen, but otherwise, yeah, the CGI on Ben Grimm is pretty good. I do like the character of Mole Man in this movie. Mole Man, although his actual name is Harvey Elder, who's being played by Paul Walter Hauser, he does have his role is pretty minor, but he does help the Fantastic Four help evacuate these citizens down to the underground society of Subterranea prior to Galactus's arrival, right? I do like how Mole Man was able to help out throughout the end of the movie. So he was so that, I thought that was pretty. I thought his role was pretty solid. Some of the banter between the Fantastic Four was also pretty good too. I do like some of Johnny's lines. I thought Joseph Quinn was a pretty solid Johnny Storm, although I still prefer Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, but that's just my opinion though. But of course, when Johnny Storm found out that Sue Storm was pregnant, he says, oh my goodness, you're going to be the best mom ever, and Reed, you're going to be the best dad. No, I'm joking. You're way out of your depth. He actually said that right in front of Reed, saying that, saying, "Oh, you're gonna be the best dad." Actually, no, scratch that. You're out of your depth. That's probably the most Johnny Storm line that I can at least think of when it comes to Johnny Storm. But oh my goodness. But I do like how he goes over to Ben Grimm and I do like how he goes over to Ben. He's like, "Ben, you and I, we're going to be the best uncles ever." I don't know why, but that line really cracked me up but that line cracked me up. I also liked how Johnny also deciphered Shalaba's native language, right? Like the native language from her home planet. It's like I don't remember what the native language. I don't remember what she said in her native language, but in her native language when she said to Johnny Storm, he says die with your own world, right? Die with yours. I think that's what it was. That's what in her native she said it in in a different language, but of course she translated that just to get the meaning out of it. Like Johnny even asked the Silver Surfer, "Hey, that whole line that you said to me, what does that mean?" And the Silver Surfer says, "It means die with yours, or die with your own world." I think that's what she said. I don't remember the exact quote, but I believe that, but it was but she said something like that. She's referring to Galactus going to destroy the Earth, right? But anyway, but I do like how Johnny kind of deciphers the language, and of course, was able to, get inside the Silver Surfer's head, realizing what the Silver Surfer is actually doing, which I thought was really clever. But anyway, though, I do like how like Shalabah comes to her senses down the line after that conversation she had with Johnny, and of course her sacrificing herself to defeat Galactus. I thought that was pretty good. But there's definitely some things I gotta talk about for the Silver Surfer, which I'm definitely gonna talk about the Silver Surfer and my negatives of this movie, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. There's a character I forgot to mention, and that is the character of Herbie. Herbie was a pretty good side character, and so is Franklin. Herbie, he's basically the robot assistant to Reed Richards, and Herbie is basically a humanoid experimental robot B type integrated electronics. I actually liked Herbie in this movie. Matthew Wood plays Herbie in this movie, and to anyone's knowledge of Matthew Wood is a sound editor. He played all the battle droids in Star Wars, including General Grievous as well. One more thing to mention before I go into my negatives of this movie is the costumes. I thought the costumes that the Fantastic Four wore, I thought it was pretty solid. They looked pretty good, especially the astronaut suits that they were wearing as well. And another thing to mention too is the opening. I actually liked how the movie opens up with the Fantastic Four fighting, fighting, going on their mission, right? From these quote unquote villains of the week, like Mole Man, who actually took down this whole bank down to the underground, kind of like the Underminer from The Incredibles. And then of course, you also have Reed Richards going up against these apes, right? I also like how Ben was able to, use his strength to, to pull the anchor of this one boat, and then of course Johnny Storm put sucking up all the fire that is going on, sucking up all the fire from a building that is being set on fire. And I forgot what Sue Storm did though. I completely forgot. But it's the other three that I can only think of. Although I guess one thing is like her and Mole Man were able to, make peace with each other, which I thought was pretty clever. I just forgot. I think it was a train accident, if I'm not mistaken. Was it a train accident? I think it was. I think it was some sort of accident. It was probably a train accident, but I might have forgot about that. The only ones I can remember were from Ben, Reed, and Johnny. That was basically it. But this definitely. But anyway, with that being said, those are my positives. Those are the thing. Those are the. That's the stuff that I like from this movie. Now we are definitely going to go into the negatives of this movie. Now, like I said, this movie is good, but it's not fantastic. Like, this movie does have its fair share of problems. Now, of course, going off the bat real quick, yes, the budget is pretty high, which definitely explains why this movie didn't do that well at the box office. But yeah, it had an over $200 million budget for the gross, right? It was a gross budget. It was the gross budget. Then they had a net budget of $181 million. But it's kind of like Marvel really wants their movies to make a boatload of cash. But apparently, this movie went through rewrites, and with that many rewrites, it's gonna add to the budget, right? Which is not which is not a good sign. I mean, having a big budget is not a big deal, but you need to write a good story first, right? Speaking of which, many people pointed out that this story is pretty predictable, but I didn't really find it that predictable. I thought it was an okay story at best. It was an okay story, but it wasn't a great story either. Now, another negative I should bring up is obviously some of the moments from Reed Richards. Now, Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, he's supposed to be the smartest man alive. He's supposed to be the smartest man, right? But there were times where he's not that. There were at least once or twice he wasn't smart. And that has to come from and that's basically the moment where he came up with the idea of, teleporting Earth to another solar system. Now, granted, I think the idea was good, but of course that backfired real quick because the Silver Surfer destroyed all the teleportation bridges, and they only used one teleportation bridge for Galactus in New York once he came. So, with that being said, why didn't they just make one teleportation bridge in the first place rather than saving that for the ending, right? You wanted to make a teleportation bridge. Okay, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do that in the first place instead of the entire world spend billions and trillions of dollars making teleportation bridges only for them to be destroyed by the Silver Surfer, right? Like, you could just make one big teleportation bridge and just use it on Galactus, right? That should have been the first thing, but no, he wasn't smart enough to have it as the first thing. All he did was tell the world to make teleportation bridges to move the entire planet to a different solar system, right? Also, to add this, Galactus, you know that Galactus can travel to different regions of of space and time, right? At least I think he does. But the thing is, he is known for destroying planets, right? He eats planets. So even if it takes even if it takes a long time, you know that Galactus can still catch up to Earth, right? And even if he's stuck in the portal, you know he can come back at any time. Also, to bring this back, like I said, Galactus tells the Fantastic Four clever little bugs, right? After he uses eye scanner to find Franklin, Reed is about to open the bridge to suck Galactus in the portal, right? But what but of course he doesn't but of course Reed doesn't realize that that Reed doesn't realize that Galactus can still scan, right? Like Reed Richards, you do know that Galactus is a lot smarter than you, right? So it's not like a walk in the park where he'll just step on this trap and just and in a split second go inside the portal, right? Nope. He'll still use that scanner to find Franklin. Yeah, I mean, yeah, those are the couple of things that I didn't really like about Reed. You know, he wasn't really that smart. Now, that might have been a thing in the comics, to which I'm not understanding about. But I never read the comics. I never read any of the Fantastic Four comics. But that's just my opinion. But that's just my opinion on Reed Richards not being that smart. Even in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where John Krasinski's Reed Richard, when he's confronted by the Scarlet Witch, um, he straight up tells her that Black Bolt can destroy her with one whisper from his mouth, and Scarlet Witch immediately shuts his mouth and says, "What mouth?" Right, and Black Bolt gets destroyed by his own sound waves because his mouth was shut. Yeah, smartest man in the world, right? Yeah, smartest man in the world. Am I right? Yeah, smartest man in the world, Henry Richards. Yeah, you're so smart that you told Scarlet Witch that Black Bolt can destroy you with one whisper from his mouth. Yeah, talk about being the smartest man in the world, and he just spoiled Black Bolt's biggest weapon. Same thing with Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four First Steps. Yeah, if we have Reed Richards telling the whole world to spend billions of dollars building teleportation bridges for the whole world, and instead of using just one for the first thing, right? But yeah, that's enough about Reed Richards for me. But anyway, but let me know your thoughts about Reed Richards from Fantastic Four First Steps. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But that's just my opinion overall. But anyway, moving forward, another negative to bring up. Now, I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack on this one, but I wasn't really sold on the female version of the Silver Surfer. Now, yes, I understand that in the comics there is a female Silver Surfer, which is in the form which is basically Shalabal, right? Shalabal is the wife to the original Silver Surfer Norrin Rad, to which in the 2007 Fantastic Four movie, Silver Surfer Norrin Rad, aka Silver Surfer, to which in the 2007 Fantastic Four movie we are introduced to Norrin Rad, the Silver Surfer. In this movie, we have the Shalabal Silver Surfer. Now, yes, Shalabal does take up the mantle of Silver Surfer in the comics, but it was only for a short run. I wasn't really keen on seeing a female Silver Surfer. Why couldn't they just do? I don't understand why Marvel wouldn't go with the Norrin Rad Silver Surfer, right? I didn't mind Julie Gardner playing Silver Surfer. I thought she did a fine job as the Silver Surfer. I mean, her acting was good. Her acting was pretty good, especially when it comes to her interactions with Johnny Storm, right? But I feel like they should have just put in Norm Rad, right? I feel like Norm Rad would have made much more sense. Even Julia Garner said that Silver Surfer is supposed to be a male, right? Yes, there is a female Silver Surfer, but Shala Ball's Silver Surfer, her run wasn't even that long. Norrin Rad's Silver Surfer was a lot longer than hers. But Norrin Rad was the main Silver Surfer that Galactus sent out to, warn Earth or the Fantastic Four um that Galactus is coming, right? Like he was the one who made the warning to them. I think that's what I'm pretty sure, but he was the one who would kind of like set the bar for Galactus's arrival, right? Not Shala Ball's Silver Surfer, but of course, I think Marvel is doing this whole multiverse thing. Like, hey, yeah, like Marvel is doing this whole multiverse thing, which I'm pretty sure explains why they're having Shala Ball being the one who brings a message to Earth to let them know. hey, Galactus is coming, all right? She even says this to the Fantastic Four that she heralds Galactus, right? That she heralds Galactus, knowing that Galactus is coming, right? However, there are a couple of moments that I do like. There is I do like her chase sequence between the Fantastic Four when they try to escape Galactus. Like she goes after the Fantastic Four in space right up until they she gets sucked into a black hole. I do like how um when the Fantastic Four threw her in this pit of molten lava, she rises from it like she was basically the Terminator, right? It's kind of like in reverse, right? Because the Silver Surfer almost looks like the T-1000 a little bit. Like she kind of looks like the T-1000 if the T-1000 never dies, right? but but that's probably the only moment that I that's the only moment that's the only thing I like about Shia LaBeouf was her chase sequence with the Fantastic Four. Although her interaction with Johnny Storm is fine. Her interaction with Johnny Storm is fine too. I like that too. But but of course, it's just basically her being, her being it's just basically her being the one being sent by Galactus to warn Earth. Yeah, I wasn't really sold on that much. I mean, I do like some of her lines I liked. I like when she says that she heralds Galactus. The whole line when she tells Johnny about hey about the her native language. I think that's pretty good. And then of course her sacrificing herself to save her sacrificing herself to push Galactus in the portal. Those were the only good things that I liked about Silver Surfer. Although when she was in her human form as Shala Ball, her human form, I like her human form when she was on that planet before she was tasked to be the Silver Surfer, right? Yeah, in my opinion, Norm it should have been Norm Rad. It should have been Norm Rad Silver Surfer, not Shalabal Silver Surfer. But that's just my opinion. And one last thing to mention about Silver Surfer, like once she leaves the Fantastic Four after her final confrontation with Johnny, she leaves after feeling so remorseful of her actions that she doesn't appear in the final battle up until her sacrifice, right? Like we never see her in the final fight with Galactus. Like we don't see her at all. Like she just disappears for the whole fight, and she just shows up last minute, knocks out Johnny, and sacrifices herself. Being the hero, and she becomes the hero, right? And throughout the whole fight, I'm just like, where is the Silver Surfer? She should be here fighting Galactus. And we never even get a scene with her and Galactus. We never get one final scene with her and Galactus of her being remorseful, right? Like, Galactus should have we should have gotten a scene where Galactus sees Silver Surfer, and Silver Surfer telling Galactus, "Hey, I'm done with this. I am not gonna be your herald. I'm not gonna send out warning messages to different planets, letting them know that you're coming. I am done." Like we should have gotten a scene like that. And Galactus, I feel like Galactus would have tried to go after her, but she escapes immediately. Like we should have gotten a scene of that, right? And then Galactus just basically, kind of like how like Thanos in the post credit scene of Avengers: Age of Ultron, that was when he was grabbing the gauntlet after all the villains failing to get the Infinity Stones. So he's like, "Fine, I'll do it myself." I feel like Galactus should have done that. We should have gotten one more scene between Galactus and Silver Surfer, before the final battle. Yes, we did get an interaction between him and Silver Surfer right after she escaped the black hole. After she admittedly failed to stop the Fantastic Four. Yes, we got that, but we should have gotten one more scene between the two of Shalabal telling Galactus, "Hey, no, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm not gonna do any of your dirty jobs right now. I'm just gonna go free." Like we should have gotten one more scene of that too, but that's my opinion. And then of course, Johnny Storm. I do while I do like Johnny Storm.
I was a little disappointed on a couple things from Johnny. The first one was that Johnny never got to say his famous catchphrase, "Flame on." It's a famous catchphrase that he says whenever he turns into the Human Torch, right? You know, him all being a hothead, flammable, man on fire, so to say, right? Because his superpower is, being on fire, right? And he's basically, Johnny Storm, the hothead that he is, the Human Torch, right? And we never get to hear him say his famous catchphrase, "Flame on." Now, the only time we hear that was when Johnny was pulling out a little minifigure from a cereal box, right? You know the scene when he and the other members of the Fantastic Four were having dinner up in their own building, right? And Johnny Storm pulls out a little minifigure of Johnny Storm from the cereal box. He plays around with it just to annoy Ben Grimm. "I'm Johnny Storm. Flame on, flame on, flame on, flame on." And Ben Grimm crushes it with his rocky hands and he says, "Flame off," and blows it in his face, right? It was a bit disappointing that we never got to hear him say "flame on" in the movie, despite the little toy that was able to say it, right? Now it does remind me of the other Fantastic Four movie um, where Johnny has this giant size thing prototype toy in his hands from the marketing department, and this gets Ben Grimm to be annoyed too. And Johnny just plays around with the Ben Grimm thing toy just to show it to him, and Johnny was like, "Hey, look what the marketing guys made. I mean, listen, it's clobbering time." And I don't know why that thing gets a laugh out of me. Even Johnny's like, "It's catchy, right?" But Ben Grimm is so annoyed that he takes the toy and smashes it to a wall right next to the elevator. And Johnny was like, "Hey, that was a prototype." And the look on Thing's face says it all. Oh man, but that part from the 2025 Fantastic Four movie reminded me of that from the other Fantastic Four movie. Now, the second thing I wanted to bring up too is that Johnny Storm. The second thing about that I didn't like about Johnny Storm. I mean, it may not sound like a big deal, but just to throw this in there, you know how Johnny Storm is basically, a ladies' man. So apparently we don't really get that at all in this movie. I mean, the closest thing that we got from Johnny Storm and I guess him being a ladies' man was when he was interacting with the Silver Surfer Shalabal. And apparently, Joseph Quinn and producer Kevin Feige discussed Johnny's womanizing in previous portrayals and concluded that this version, the 2025 film, would not be considered sexy by modern audiences. Quinn wanted his version to be, and I quote, "less callous with other people's feelings," end of quote, and more self-aware of his attention-seeking behavior while still having a lot of bravado and humor. And Matt Shackman noted that Johnny is also smart and heroic, despite undercutting that with jokes. Him being more self-aware and attention-seeking, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. And alongside with, him being smart and heroic. I mean, that's a part of Johnny. Johnny is heroic, although I mean I haven't read any of the Fantastic Four comics, so I don't know what to say about him being smart. But to be fair though, I can definitely come around to that. But going back to what I said about the him being a ladies' man, him not being a ladies' man in this movie. I mean, I guess you could say that's. I mean, in my point of view as a moviegoer, I mean, it's not a big deal. I don't really think about that. But of course, from the previous, Fantastic Four movies I saw, I mean, him being a ladies' man, I mean, that's more of a character trait, right? It's a trait of his character, right? I mean, he's basically the popular guy, right? I mean, hey, you know how popular guys like to get the ladies too, right? That's that sort of thing. I mean, that sort of thing too. I mean, we see him interact with this one nurse. I mean, we see him get all flirty with this one nurse in the first Fantastic Four movie, even to the point where the two go out skiing, right? Up on top of a up on top of a snowy mountain. There was also, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty positive that in the Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, Johnny also tries to flirt with this one military woman, right? That sort of way. But to me, it's not really much of a big deal. But I can understand there were definitely people complaining about that, since Johnny is basically, a ladies' man. But that's a character trait. But I mean, that's a trait of his character, right? He is basically, he's basically a ladies' man. But when I hear the words modern audiences, that kind of downgrades a bit, right? That kind of downgrades the fact that you want Johnny's story to be made for the modern audiences, rather than you're taking that trait away just to make it more appealing to modern audiences, right? Rather than, everybody, right? Especially those who are a big fan of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, right? I mean, you can't just take a character trait away and just make it for modern audiences. You gotta make sure everybody is on board with that. In fact, without that character trait, then there's going to be something wrong. I mean, to be honest, though, as a moviegoer, I didn't have any problem with that. From a Fantastic Four standpoint, yeah, I can understand where some people were coming from, being upset that Johnny's no longer the ladies' man that he is. The filmmakers did this just to make him more safe for modern audiences. Although maybe I'm stretching the bar on this, but you guys let me know your thoughts on that. But this is just my opinion, though. So anyway, that's enough about Johnny.
There's one more negative I want to bring up, and that is actually, believe it or not, that is actually from a character that was actually cut from this movie. To anyone's knowledge, yes, there is a character that was actually cut from this movie, and that would be the character Red Ghost. So, yes, we're supposed to get a character in this movie named Red Ghost, who is actually, believe it or not, played by John Malkovich. So John Malkovich was supposed to be in this movie, and we actually see him in the first trailer for the Fantastic Four movie, but only for one shot. So we see John Malkovich with a beard, right? And we only see him throughout one portion of the trailer, and that's it. So in July of 2025, Matt Shackman revealed that John Malkovich's role as Red Ghost had been cut from the film, and said this was a heartbreaking decision to make. Shackman explained that Red Ghost was originally planned to be introduced in a sequence at the beginning of the film that chronicles the Fantastic Four's early years as superheroes. This would have included a battle against Red Ghost and his super apes. After this, Red Ghost would have returned in the climax for a scene that initially depicted him destroying Reed's teleportation bridges, although Red Ghost was replaced by Shia LaBeouf in that scene for the final cut of the film, because Shackman felt it just made more sense to have Shia LaBeouf come back. It stayed more on story with the antagonists we knew and were spending the most time with. Shackman praised Malkovich's performance in the role, but said his scenes were so many but said his scenes were some of many that were cut to help balance the introduction of the Fantastic Four as a group and individually their world and various other villains in the film. Although Malkovich was cut, the film retains a brief cameo appearance by a cartoon version of Red Ghost in the post-credit scene as part of an in-universe animated series titled The Fantastic Four Power Hour, which also features the villains Diablo, Dragon Man, Mad Thinker, Puppet Master, and Wizard. So yeah, granted that's a lot to say, Malkovich was supposed to be in the beginning of this movie. Now, two things about this. He should have been the one. He should have been in this movie because we see Reed Richards fighting his super apes, right? But we don't see the person leading the super apes, right? We see Reed Richards fighting the super apes, but we don't see who the actual person was controlling or sending the super apes, which was basically Red Ghost, which is John Malkovich's character. But we don't see his character in this movie. We see that through a cartoon version during the post-credit scene. And that's pretty disappointing too because because his character appeared in one shot of the trailer and we don't see him throughout any other parts of the trailer. And him appearing in the movie and him appearing in the beginning of the movie as a villain of the week, it would make sense. It would make a good opening for the Fantastic Four movie, kind of showcasing more of the Fantastic Four fighting all kinds of villains, right, with their powers, right? And Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four fighting Red Ghost with their powers, that actually would have been awesome. Showcasing their fighting abilities against supervillains, right? That actually would have made much more sense. Like that actually would have made much more sense. But his appearance of taking out the teleportation bridges, to me, that doesn't make any sense. Because why would Red Ghost and his super apes take out the teleportation bridges? I don't understand the context behind that, but Shala Ball being the one taking out the teleportation bridges makes a lot more sense. Because this is a Silver Surfer, trying to stop the Fantastic Four from, preventing Galactus to eat the planet, right? So it makes sense for the Silver Surfer to take out the teleportation bridges, not Red Ghost. But yeah, I will say though, they should not have cut John Malkovich's character from the movie. I wouldn't mind if it's just a cameo, right? Even if I mean, it would have been fine if his role was a cameo, showcasing the Fantastic Four's fighting abilities. It would have made much more sense of his character of Red Ghost being a villain of the week. Just a villain of the week, right? He should have been a villain of the week, but nope. Marvel decided to cut his character out. But I will say though, I do feel bad for John Malkovich because I really wanted to see him in this movie, but this thing didn't really bother me as much. But I will say though, this was another negative from this movie that I didn't really like. I did not like how they cut out Red Ghost, especially for the beginning of the movie. They should have kept him for the beginning of the movie though. But other than that, that's pretty much it. And also, I forgot. And also, one other thing to mention too is I guess is a subplot, but it feels overlooked. It's Ben Grimm's interaction with this school teacher named Rachel Rosman, being played by Natasha Lyonne. So apparently, we get a couple scenes of Ben and Rachel. It's basically hinted that Ben is in love with this school teacher, right? And many commentators believe that the character was named as a tribute to Rosalind Roz Goldstein, wife of Fantastic Four co-creator Jack Kirby, which I think that's a pretty pretty good. I feel like that's a pretty good tribute, but they really don't use her character as much. Like, this is supposed to hint at a love relationship between her and Ben, right? Which that whole subplot is overlooked. Like, we don't really see her that much. We only see her when she interacts with Ben Grimm twice, right? We only see her a couple times, and that's pretty much it. We don't see her that much. The only time I could think that we see her and Ben is when Ben is talking to her prior to when Ben was lifting the car to him to, put on a show for the kids, right? And then another time was before Galactus's arrival, right? I guess like a one last goodbye of some sorts. And that was when Ben had a rocky beard. Yeah, that's one other thing. How can Ben Grimm, aka the Thing, grow a rocky beard? How does he do that? I don't understand the context behind that, but whatever. Just expand your disbelief on that. But yeah, I will say though, we didn't really get much of Ben, and we didn't really get that much of Ben Grimm and that whole relationship with that school teacher though. Like, we didn't get much of that. It didn't really make sense to me, but yeah. But other than that, that's pretty much it. But there you have it. That's my negatives on this movie. So anyway, those are my positives and negatives of this movie. So yeah. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Now, of course, before I close out this episode, I want to give in my final thoughts. So, final thoughts on this movie. I enjoyed this movie. It was a lot of fun. Yes, there are some problems with this movie, but I overall enjoyed it. Fantastic Four: The First Steps. While not a fantastic film, but I find this movie to be a good movie. Despite the film's problems, I enjoyed the movie for what it is. It's a fun movie. I really wish the story was a little better, in my opinion, but overall, I thought this movie was okay. It's actually nice to see a good Fantastic Four movie for once. For once, we finally get a good Fantastic Four movie from Marvel. Outside of The Incredibles, I am actually glad that we were able to get a good Fantastic Four movie that beats out the previous Fantastic Four movies. And of course, yes, I still enjoy the 2005 and 2007 Fantastic Four movies, but 2025 Fantastic Four movie, this one was good too. This one was a step up. Not a perfect movie, but a good movie for Fantastic Four: The First Steps. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So there you have it, folks. That is my take on the Fantastic Four: The First Steps. So to anyone who is listening, what did you guys think of Fantastic Four: The First Steps? Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Did you think this movie was okay? I would love to hear your thoughts. And if I'm missing out on anything from this movie, please let me know in the comments below. But other than that, that'll be a wrap for this episode. Thank you all for tuning into Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.